Welcome to Get Better Basketball Live. I'm Coach DeMarco, and today my guest is Parker Boys Basketball head coach Austin Hurley, who's going to take us through Gonzaga's continuity ball screen offense. You're not going to want to miss this episode. But before I jump into it, make sure you hit that like button down below, turn on your notifications, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great content each and every week. Another Get Better Basketball Live is up next. Coach DeMarco here with Get Better Basketball Live, and today my guest is Coach Austin Hurley, Parker Boys Basketball head coach. And first, I want to say congratulations on your new coaching job and welcome you to Get Better Basketball Live.
Thanks, Coach. I'm really excited to share my input and appreciate the congratulations.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about a continuity ball screen offense used by Gonzaga, but also used by a lot of teams out there, sometimes as just a quick hitter and sometimes really as their whole offense as a continuity. So I want to ask you before we get into some diagrams and a breakdown of this offense, where did you learn it? When did you start using it? And what is it that you really like about this offense?
So 5 years ago, I joined or 6 years ago, I was hired at T Area School District here in South Dakota, and then I've been part of the basketball program for 5 years. That's when we were learning the offense, and to be honest, we were scouting a team that ran it, and our scout team ran it so well, we took it. We decided to use it. So over the years, we've just been progressing more and more with it, finding different counters, different entries, just different ways to perfect the offense. And that's kind of what we've been focused on the last 5-6 years.
So one of the things with continuity offenses, and I really like them, I've used continuity type offenses in the past, is that element of predictability. And we were talking about this just a few minutes ago before we came on the air, and I thought you had some really good insight about what makes it so difficult to defend this offense. Yes, there's elements that are predictable, but what is it that makes this offense so difficult for teams to defend?
Yeah, the offense is very predictable, but when you get it to the second and third side, like we talked about, if a team's a hard blitzing team, a hard hedging team, they're going to hard blitz that first time, maybe that second. When you get to that third side and you get it back to a guard, the defense kind of falls asleep. They get in a routine of, okay, we've been doing this. And then you take one jab into the screen and then reject it. You have a baseline drive that's open. And then with that baseline drive, I'll talk about it as a 45-degree cut from the top side wing. Or if you come off of it and maybe it's not a very good hard hedge or there's miscommunication, you drive to the nail and you skip past to the corner three for a wide open 3-point shot, especially against a pack line. And then against switching teams, same thing. You may have a good first switch, second switch, but on that third side, miscommunication may happen. Maybe getting slow, you may worry about the drive and you can't close out in time. So teams kind of can fall asleep at the wheel with the predictability.
Yeah, I see that with other continuity offenses too, and I appreciate you bringing that part up. And I want to ask you, running this with the team and at the high school level, obviously can be used at the college level as we see with Gonzaga, and probably all the way up into the professional level. But when you're teaching it to players, how challenging is it to teach it to players? And what are some of the key coaching points as we look at this breakdown in a couple minutes? We're going to see what the offense looks like and how you run it. But what are some of those key coaching points that you have to get across to the players?
So the key focal points that we talk about is you got to establish who's your 4 and 5 right away as far as your pick and roll guys and go through their roles. We try to keep it as simple. I had a coach that stuck with me, Michael Scott, the office as well. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. So we try to keep it as simple as possible. If you're a 4 and 5, okay, wherever you start, if you're on the right side of the court, you stay on the right side of the court. You don't go to the left side and vice versa. And you set your screen or you slip your screen, you roll the block, you pop. It's basically a circle. The guard part gets a little tricky, especially with the younger guys. When to cut on the reversal, the timing of it, they want to get antsy. That's kind of the difficultiness for it. So there's a lot of time spent just on the offense itself and getting it repped over and over and over. So that way the guys just know, and it's secondhand nature. You don't need to go through too much, but you have to rep it a lot because those guards get confused on, okay, I come off the screen, I come to the elbow, I reverse it. Okay, I'm supposed to space away, but they want to cut right through the paint because that's where their body's taking them. And I've seen teams do a strong cut too with it, but we teach space away, and that's kind of been the challenge. But once guys get it, they get it, and it works really well.
What are some of the challenges in terms of what teams do defensively? I know we mentioned hedging and they could blitz it or they could switch on it, and it's tough for them to consistently do that throughout an entire possession. But are there some things that you've seen that teams have done that can be challenging for you guys when you're trying to run this offense?
Absolutely. Teams that kind of run the pack line defense, when they have three guys sitting in the paint and you come off a screen and you want to try to hit that roll guy, and there's two extra bodies there, three extra bodies, it's really tough to get it to that guy. So you're kind of focused on, you got to have really good 3-point shooters to stretch those guys out. Either if you have a big or a 4-man that can shoot a 3, that really helps stretch the defense out a little bit. Or, if you have really good 3-point shooters, hitting that guy in the corner will stretch that bottom defender out so they can't tag. That's kind of been the issue, is how do we get the ball into the paint when there's 3 guys in the paint and we only have 2 guys attacking it? That's kind of been our challenge.
Well, you've piqued my curiosity, Coach, in terms of this continuity offense, and I think we have some of the basics and the basic foundation, but I want to jump into the X's and O's here and check out the breakdown of this offense.
All right, so here's the Gonzaga University continuity offense breakdown. Like I said, I'm Coach Austin Hurley, Parker High School in South Dakota. The things I'm going to go over is just basic continuity. We have entry actions, then our continuity for switching and hard hedge or blitz teams, and then we have some sets that go along with it. So with our main offense continuity, as you can see, there's different types that you can run. I like the 1-4 high just because you can get so many different entries out of it. Whereas if there's the Euro, where it's more of a 5 outlook, but I'm more of the 1-4 high. So as you can see, we're going to start with the 1 with the ball. He can pass to the 2 or the 3. He's going to cut away to the opposite corner. 4 comes, sets the ball screen. 2 is going to come off. They're going to look to hit the 4 roll man. If it's not there, hit the 5. On the reversal, when the ball gets to the 5, the 3 is going to cut through. 1 lifts, pass, and then we start it all over again. So that's our basic main offense continuity. So when we go into our entries, so we have our wing entry, like I talked about, 1 pass to the 2 or the 3, cut away. On here, we have the push entry. So on this, let's say you have a really good, you've been running this 5 possessions in a row, 10 possessions in a row, what have you. And like I said, that predictability, hey, the ball's going to go to our 3 or our 2, whatever the case may be. And they might say, hey, it's going to go there. So we're going to try to cut them off, kind of like a pressure defense situation where 1 pass away, we're in the passing lane. So what happens is the 3 is going to cut through and then to the opposite corner through there. And what happens is the 1 comes through and then 4 lifts, and the 5s can come set this screen. And what happens, what's really nice with this is it gives the 1 a lot of options here. 1 can either dribble baseline because the defender that's guarding the 3 here, I'll put him in a blue here. The defender that's blue, if he has to chase the 3, let's say it's your best player face guarding, he's got to clear out all the way over here. So now we have a baseline drive that's open. Now let's say it's not your best player and they're going to stick to their principles of maybe they're at the midline on the line and they go here. What we can do now is still attack baseline if they're a hard hedging or blitzing team. And this gives the 1 more options of either using the screen or going baseline, depending on what his read is. It's just a good entry to get into your offense when the wing is getting taken away. Because like I said, the offense is super predictable. It's got to go to the 2 or the 3 in most cases. And when teams start taking that away, the 1 can just push it, dribble them out. they go to the opposite corner.
I really like this option, Coach, because I know I've had some conversations with coaches in terms of the defensive side of it, and including Kramer Soderberg, who's a Packline. His dad's an assistant coach at the University of Virginia, and he's a Division III assistant coach as well. And they like to really hard hedge, almost blitz any of those side ball screens. So I really like what you've given your team the opportunity to do here with this push entry. When that 3 clears out, it does open up that baseline drive, and that can make it tough for those teams that are trying to hard hedge or blitz in that situation. So this is a really nice, just simple, like a simple little adjustment, but I feel like it can make a really big difference against those teams. So.
Yeah, it's super simple. All these entries are super easy to learn because it's one formation. I like to teach coach football or coach basketball like coach football. One formation, and you're gonna have 8 different plays. Well, in this case, we're gonna have different entries, so the kids learn it really easily. The next one we have a post entry, and you've already ran your push. You can do a post entry, maybe have a 4 or 5 that's really good at passing. So we're going to pass it into the 5, and then we're going to look to pass to the 3, but the 3 is going to step up, acting like calling for ball, and then it's going to backdoor. What's really nice about this is that against Packline teams or any defense is your X2 is going to probably be down here on the pass. Your X4 is probably sitting here for reversal, or if that screen were to come, which leaves a nice gap right here. If your X3 stays up and gets backdoored, it's a nice window opportunity for the 3 to get to the rim, and not necessarily using a ball screen. And that way you can maybe get a quick layup and things like that. Other things you can do with that is, so let's say the 3 doesn't get the ball there, and let's say the X3 is a super athletic, gifted player, and he beats him down here. So then the 3 will clear out to that opposite side, and then now the 5 has the ball, and then 1's over on the wing, and now we're in pick and roll continuity. Other cases we do too is, let's say the 3's not open on this, and the 2 is going to side, and we're going to read the 2 on this, that X2. Let's say he comes hard. Now we're going to skip pass it over to the 2 here for a 3-point shot, or we're in a good continuity where if the 2 has to sprint up, back up to the top here, now we're in a chasing aspect where the 4 can now come hit that chasing X2 in a screen, and now we're coming off, and now we've put X2 in a disadvantage, and now we're probably hitting the roll man right there for a 2.
Coach, can I ask? I have 2 questions here. One is just looking at the different types of entries. Is this something that you as a coach during the course of the game will call as a wrinkle because you're kind of anticipating different things the defense is doing, or is it a read? We wanted a wing entry to the 3, they overplayed it hard. So 5's going to step up. We're going to hit them, and then we're going to use the more of a post entry. Is it or could it be both or something different? Just curious about these different entries and how your team incorporates them throughout a game.
So I think it all depends on how comfortable you are with your point guard. If you have an All-American point guard, All-Stater that is very knowledgeable of the game and understands and is a good floor general, I will give him free reign of calling out push or post, those kind of things, where if I feel in the game that, or they're not realizing it, where the wings are getting just totally bombarded and they're not getting open, then that's something where I'll call, post entry, push entry, and do these and call those out as well. Just kind of do some game management with that. Because sometimes what I've seen in the past too is if your 4 and 5 isn't ready, their face will be, and then when you pass the ball and they're not ready, a turnover occurs because it just bounces off their face, and then defense takes the other way. So sometimes it's better to call it out so everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask too, with these different entries, will you I'm almost envisioning like you can incorporate some like small-sided games just right out of like, we're gonna play even 3v3 or 4 versus 4, whatever you want to do, but just like out of these different entries, all right, we're gonna start post entry and then like get into it, or like do you do things like that to teach this incrementally, or there's some other? I feel like this lends itself to some nice small-sided games. So are there
Yeah.
other ones that you might consider using with your team?
Yeah. So if we do 3 versus 3 and we're going to work on our entries, we cut the court right in half. And we're going to start with our one out on the right wing or right slot area to start with. And we'll do 3 versus 3 and just work on these entries. And then when we go from there, if we don't get the entry, you can't score unless the 5 sets a screen for you or you get a ball screen from the post player. So we'll cut the court in half to start with, but then once you get your initial entry in, it's live basketball. And we're just continuing sending a ball screen after ball screen. And then you can implement 4 versus 4 and then get into 5 versus 5 when you need to. Our next one is the UCLA entry. Duke runs this really well. It's another one we call out UCLA. This is one to get just a cheap shot in, try to get a quick hitter, something where we need a bucket or, we don't have any movement. Or maybe maybe our point guard's a lot faster than their point guard. So what we'll do is we'll call UCLA, and it's just simple. We're going to pass to a wing, whichever side. So this case, the 3 gets the ball, and then the 1's going to cut off, reading this. And this is another good, I'm glad you brought the small-sided game aspect. This is where we want to work on our small-sided game because we want to work on reading this X1 here, because if the X1 goes underneath, we go over the top. If the X1 wants to go over the top and try to cut that off, which we teach, if there's a UCLA or a back screen, we teach jump pass, go here, and the 1's going to go underneath and try to get that bucket there. And then if it's not there, the 1 just clears out, and then we're right into our pick and roll continuity. The next one we have is an Iverson entry. Just plain simple, we have the Iverson cut. The 4 and 5 can set a screen here. I really like this one because whoever goes over the top, in this case it's the 2, is going to go over the top here. And what it does is puts their defender in a chasing spot here. So let's say you're playing a really good hard hedging team or a blitzing team or even switching team. What it does is it gives the 2 momentum coming across where they're going to get the ball at the wing and their defender's chasing them. Mm-hmm. So once the ball gets in to that position and the 2 now has the ball over there on this side of the court, the 5 can now come set a ball screen. The 2 is chasing. So this X5 has to really work hard to blitz up here. And the X2 is on this back side in a bad spot. So then it opens baseline because the X3 now that was down here is chased the 3 across the court and now is not in midline position because they have to worry about the 3 getting the ball on the other side. So it takes away that midline defender against packline defenses or pressure defenses.
Nice wrinkles off those last couple of sets too. I think about the UCLA set. There's an opportunity for the staggered, having that initial cut coming through. I know a lot of teams like to run that. And then also on this one, depending on, your 4 player, if you walk him down to the block, there's also an opportunity for maybe like some type of hammer action. So there's some quick hitter actions that you can add in as wrinkles off these basic concepts. But what I really like about this as we go through, and I know we're going to continue to look at entries and see the breakdown of this offense, but it's really the simplicity of, if teams are going to hard hedge, then yep, we're going to get into an Iverson entry and we're going to open up an opportunity to get to the baseline. So there's just little things like that if they're going to do this, then we're going to use that. And I think that keeps it really simple for players, and they're going to get used to that. And like you said, if you have a great point guard, they're going to do some of this stuff naturally during the game, or you as the coach can make those calls. But I just like the simple adjustments just with alignment or the initial action and then the ball screen, and it's going to open up some really nice opportunities. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we actually have a hammer set that's off of our Iverson. So when we run this, and we actually call it hammer, as when we run hammer, we actually get a wide open look for that three for a quick hitter. Because what happens is when we run Iverson once and we kick it to the two, then what happens is actually that X3 will cheat and sit on the midline, and then there will be no one to guard the two, and there's actually no one to screen for the that three in the corner. So he's just wide open naturally. So then the next one we have is a cross screen entry. This is really good against hard hedging blitz teams. Once again, we're putting defenders in a chasing situation. So we want to be in the advantage. So X4 is going to be in a chasing disadvantage here. So we're going to pass to the three. One's going to cut away the opposite corner. The five is going to go set a screen on X4. And what happens is if they're not switching post to post, that's a read we'll have in a game or on film. But if they're a non-switching team and they're hard hedging, that X4 now has to chase over the top here to try to blitz on here and could be late. And if they are late on that blitz, it gives our X3 an advantage to come off this screen. And now we have here where we freed up that dribble to try to get a good look at that roll man. And even against hard hedging blitz switch teams, we don't even set the screen. We slip everything on it. So more than likely, the three just takes one dribble or takes one or two dribbles, and we have a good look there, or we have the one sitting in the corner because there's someone sitting right in the paint for that 3-point shot. And we got a couple more entries here. So that's our entries there for that. So then the next thing we have is our pick and roll adjustments for switching teams and hard hedge blitz teams. So against a switching team, if they're going to switch 1 through 5, even 1 through 4, we don't set the screen. We slip all screens. So with that, the 3 is going to come off. They have to take 0 or 1 dribble on the switch, or they're going to have to string it out with 2 dribbles, and we're going to try to make that early pass right away. This is kind of against the Packline scheme defense here, where you got 3 guys basically on the midline. So it's going to be tough to make that pass, but that's one option we have with the adjustment against a Packline defense. The next thing we have is a 4 to 5 pass. This is really a difficult thing. You got to rep this a lot for guys to understand, especially at the high school level. So even against switching teams or hard blitzing, when we come off and we reverse it to the 4 up in this spot, once they get it, they need to look, and this 2 needs to freeze until the 4 turns to look to pass to the 1. Because what happens is when we come and pass here, this X1, because it's so predictable, we get this on the 2nd or 3rd time that the 1 is going to start cheating, the X2 is going to start cheating, and we get this pocket right here where we can throw a pass down to the 5, and now we have a guard on the backside of our 5 for a post up, which more than not we get a 2 or we get an and 1 out of it. That's sort of been a really big key, is the 4 to 5 pass, but it has to be repped a lot, and it's just got to be, guys got to have basketball IQ and know to look there first. That's kind of one of the difficult parts of offense, is we get such a routine of reversal. We forget to look at the 5. And usually on the 2nd and 3rd side, that 5 or 4 is wide open.
And even a quick ball fake from the 4, yep. And then that look inside. And I think a huge part of that is the 5 being able to, sail that 3 player to get them on their back, or even just get position, because they're probably going to be have a little bit of a size advantage, which I actually want to ask you about. To run this offense, some coaches are thinking, you hear Gonzaga, you're thinking those bigger type post players like a Timmy underneath the basket who is really skilled, but you're running it at the high school level. So, do you need that 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" post, or do you just need a kid who's maybe they're 6 feet, 5'11", 6'1", and they got good hands, they're good, footwork underneath, positioning, and they're able to run, this type of offense? I guess ideally, can you run it with different types of personnels, or do you really need that true, 4 or 5 player that's a bigger body player?
So in the past 5 years I've been with the program, we had some length here and there, but when we were running this really well, our starters were 5'11", 6 foot, 6'3", 6'4", 6'3", around that area. So we really didn't have any 6'5", 6'7" guys out of this. At one point we had a 5'10" guy running the 4, because what he would do is against blitzing teams, he would slip that screen. If he was the 4 or in the 5 spot, he would slip this screen and go to the 3-point line. And we'd come off and we'd boomerang it to that 3-point shot, and he would knock it down every time. He was our corner specialist. So there's different reads you can have with this based on your personnel. I think having a 3-point shooter sit in a screen, like look at Klay Thompson, he sets screens all the time. He doesn't even have to take a dribble to shoot, because if he sets a screen, he knows he's getting open. Granted, it's the NBA, but a lot of those guys that want to get open, go set a screen for someone, you'll get open.
Yeah, so many great points there, Coach. And I'll say one of the better post players I had in my career, I coached both men's and women's basketball, but was a football player who was about 5'11", maybe 6 feet, playing against bigger type post players, could hit the 3-pointer, but just great with the body underneath, getting position, sailing players, good off the pick and pop, just good footwork, good around the basket, and, was a little bit undersized. So I wanted to ask that question because I know that you can have those smaller post players that, like you said, can go out and stretch the defense, and you can run this offense with that type of team. At least that's what I envision. And it's good to hear that you're doing that with your teams as well.
Yeah. So then the next one's a give and go. I actually saw Virginia run this, and I saw it on Twitter a little bit, against a switching team or blitzing team. So when you get a reversal, or let's say you have a post entry, when you swing it to the 3 here, we're going to take 2 steps with the 5, and he's just going to go. We're not going to take a dribble, because, like you said, the offense gets so predictable. You catch them sleeping, a little give and go. You get the 5 to slip without even coming to set a screen, and you're going to get a good look there. You might get a post up in here. So that's kind of what we're looking for on that against switching teams.
Yeah, and as I look at that one again, thinking about the opportunity to hit that 5, and if that 1 helps to skip out to the 1, or to 1 to set a screen in on X2, and 2 to dump down to the corner, again getting into kind of that hammer action. It's becoming kind of a thing. I don't talk too much about that, but for whatever reason, I'm seeing a lot of opportunities in this that you can set that screen, and knowing that they might do a really nice job helping, but you can still catch and then look opposite and have some scoring opportunities. So another really simple adjustment, and I'm seeing that as a theme. I know I already brought it up, but really like the concept, this offense, and what you're able to do to take advantage of what the defense is giving you. So I'm excited to see more here as we move forward.
Yep. So then the next one we have is just our basic attack the nail. If we have a switch, and let's say it's a slower switch, or they're not switching very well against a pack line, our main thing is to hit the roll man, or hit this 1 out here, or even this 2. If they're going to be pack line, the X2 is going to sit in the middle here. Hitting the 1 or the 2 for an open 3 is really good. So that's just a simple, basic read that we teach them right away against switching teams, is just try to get to that nail point. And then all these are the same as for hard hedging here. When you have a trap at the top, we slip the screen with an early pass. These are all pretty much going to be the same concepts here. It just shows where the defender would be, because they're not switching out of it. And same thing here, especially against hard hedging teams, you're going to get the 4 to 5 pass a lot more in this pocket, because the X3 and X5 are at the top. When they're sitting at this top part here and trying to double, you got to get the ball and make a good quick pass. And then we got to get a good quick pass there, because there's a wide open pocket. Now, the big thing on this one with hard hedging teams, or even when it gets down to the dunker spot is what Vance Wahlberg calls it. When we get it down to that block here, we actually call it 45 dive. And so the 2 here, when the ball goes here, because the X2 in this situation, the X1 is going to probably turn their eyes and look down here. We actually tell our 2 to dive, and then we hit the dive man for a layup. We call that 40. They just have to know it. We don't call it out. Is when a post touches the block, whoever's on that opposite wing has 45 dive. It's just a 45-degree angle dive. And more than likely, because that's a 5, and let's say you have a 6'5" guy, and they're going to double the post, you're going to have a guard come down, and you have an open layup.
I feel like the defenses are either going to, pack the paint and kind of flood the paint, as some coaches will say when they're blitzing here in this situation. And it's going to open up that 45 cut from the 2 off the catch. Or, I know the players are kind of diagrammed to be into that help spot, but if you start to hit passes to the opposite side of the floor, I feel like that help's going to come in a little bit slower. Then you're going to start to hit the rolls or the slips. So it's really like a cat and mouse game with the defense, depending on how they're adjusting. And then if your players are making sound reads, which I envision they will be with the amount of time you spend on this and keeping it really simple for them, this is very, very tough to defend. I'm a defensive minded coach and thinking like, geez, if I commit to this, then they're going to start to take that, this other option. So it makes it very, very tough to defend, and you almost have to pick, what you want to take away, and you're probably going to give something up in the game and just hope you can get a closeout and a hand in someone's face. But I think this is a really tough offense concept to defend. So
then our next part's the give and go, and like you said, with that X1 flooding and tagging, that's what I teach. Is we teach blitzing hard hedge. So that X1 will be coming down, trying to take that away. That's why we got to have a give and go early pass. Like we said, predictability with this works amazing, because like that 45 dive or even the 1 or the 2 will be our primary targets if the pass does go here. Because the 1 comes here, and let's say you do have a 6'1" guy running there, or in my case, I'm going to have a 6'2" guy pretty much running that this next season at those spots. If that X1, if that point guard 6'1" as well, that's not really an advantage on our part. What we really got to be well at is that post player has to be really good at post move, or what we really have to do is get this pass to the 1 early to get this 2 to come out, and then we can make an extra pass for a 3-point shot to the 2 up here. Or if it goes there, we can have that 45 dive as well. So that's kind of how we go about if they're going to flood and tag, that is trying to put not that bottom defender, it's the 1 defender who has to cover the 1 and the 2 now. And because that 1 can't leave if the 5 has the ball. And then here's the one we do with our with this is the reject ball screen that I've been talking about. Is so when teams want a hard hedge blitz, they all the goal is, the X3 wants to force and get on this side to force the 3 to go up. So in this case, we're going to take a jab to the left and baseline drive and force this midline defender if he's there. Usually we don't get this on the first side, we get it on the second or third, because the X1 will actually fall asleep at some point because they're chasing the cutter through and they forget, hey, I need to sit the midline. And they'll have to frantically get back. And this is where you get baseline drive, second or third side. And then options are here is you got your 1 in the corner, you got your 2 doing the 45 dive. So options are to score at the rim, hit the 1 for a 3-point shot, or hit the 2 coming in, diving in the lane. Because more than that, this X2, if this X1 goes out, has to cover the 1 or the 2 and pick your poison on that one. So those are all our adjustments. And then so here's kind of what our counters and our sets are that I like to run out of this. So this is just a basic strong action. So every time we've been running this, if you've noticed, we've cut our 1 to the weak side. This 3 should be up here. But so we're going to cut our 1 to the strong side. And so what happens is we take away the midline defender in, usually the X1 sits here because we cut to the opposite. So what happens in this offense, the X3 would be sitting here. And so on that 3, so when we cut through, now the X1, let's say it's a gap defense. is going to sit here, X2 is going to be here, and X5 is coming. So we have X1 down here. X3 is now trying to get to here. If we can get that roll and get that pass, that's awesome. If not, what we're going to do is if they're going to tag, like you said before, we're going to get that, we're going to roll man, and what's going to happen is we're going to actually lift this 1 back up. We're going to kick it to the 1 here, and then we're going to get X3 on the back, and now we have a mismatch. And then if the ball does go in there, we have a 45 dive on the backside, or what we teach our players out of this actually is instead of cutting him, we'll do a Laker cut with the 1, and we'll come right to the elbow and then come right here and see if we can get a pass there. If not, he clears out, and then we're just back into our continuity. And then here's that hammer you were talking about. So with the hammer part, we Iverson, and then so we get the 3 of the ball in the wing. We're going to reject the ball screen, and if they have the layup, we're going to take the layup. And more than likely, this pass isn't going through the paint. In the game situation, this pass will actually come behind the rim here, behind the backboard, and we'll hit that too. One of our juniors, who's now going to be a senior, and I had a freshman, we ran it 3 times in a row, and he made 3 of them in a row. He was just wide open, he was hitting, so we just ran it 3 times in a row, and it was just a really good play for a quick hitter.
It's working. Keep going to it. That's a little bit of that football mentality too, you know, go right back to it.
Yep. And then this is Loyola. This is one I stole from Loyola Chicago when they're running their Princeton stuff. I just they ran it out of a 2-3 high guard offense. I turned it into a 1-4 offense. So in this, we're going to send our 5 to the top of the key here, pass it. The 1's going to dribble out, pass. And on the catch, the 1's going to come back and act like he's going to get a dribble handoff. And then 4 is going to set a stagger. So they're going to double stagger, which turns into a triple. Whereas you can see the 2's coming off. And I like this because I'm also a dribble drive guy as well. So with this, depending on what the other team's philosophy is, if they're chasing, it's going to be really tough because we have a double gap on this side of the court. We have a double gap over here for our guard coming off the handoff and off all those screens. And then what Loyola did really well out of this was when they came out, granted they had 6'10" guy in the middle, they hit the big man right there because X4 and X1 could not come by and cover it because they're too busy worrying about the coverage. Then also if X3 is going to step in, this is part of the dribble drive concept, is if he helps, we're going to kick to that 3 for a wide open 3, or if they stay, we got a racket at the rim. So there's a little bit of a 1-4 high with a Vance Walver dribble drive stuff in there. What makes it some Princeton.
Yeah, I really like that. I remember seeing Loyola Chicago. I have quite a few video clips from them from the tournament. They were just a fun team to watch, and this set in particular worked really well for them. I think they hit the big on a lob one time, and he had a layup,
Mm-hmm.
and I know a couple times they got to the hoop on this as well. But that's a really nice action.
Yeah, it's a really tough set to beat. I mean, you got to pick your poison kind of on how you want to. You're chasing and even on this, when it goes to the 5 here, if let's say you run it one more time and X2 wants to cheat it, you got a backdoor right here for the 2 down at the rim as well. So there's some reads off there and some counters you can do as well. And the last set we have is up. This is one I designed where we get our initial action here. This is where you can get a pin down or a 3-point shot. This is something where I'll run if we need a 3. Maybe there's 8 seconds left in the quarter, out of timeouts kind of thing. So we're going to kick it to the 1, or the 1's going to pass to the 2 here. And we're going to get not a UCLA cut, but it kind of looks like a UCLA cut. And then the 4 is going to come out and set the screen. He should be up here, not down there. But so we're going to set the screen. Instead of him rolling, we're going to tell the 4 to go to this corner. And then the 5's actually, instead of popping up for a reversal like he normally does, he's actually coming down to set a down screen for the 1 to come up. And let's say you have a really good 3-point shooter for your 1. you're going to have a wide open 3-point shot because everyone's thinking continuity on this side. Okay, they're getting into it. And on the backside, they're falling asleep because the predictability comes into play. And then so what happens is if they're a switching team, it works perfect. We're going to hit the 1, the 1's going to hit the 5, 5 will bury the X1, and he's going to get a good shot, get a good layup at the rim. If they're a switch, and if they're a chasing team, we're going to hit a hard screen, hit the 1 for a 3-point shot, and even on the switch, we might get a slip right in the paint, and they'll have a little 3-footer. So that's kind of the counters and the sets that I have that I've put into this offense.
You know, that's one of the things with the continuity offense. You brought up a great point there, Coach, is the fact that, yeah, it can be predictable, but teams have to defend it, you know, multiple times in each possession. But the other piece to that is, you know, that those 3, 4, 5 times a game, or maybe more than that, where you go to some of these wrinkles, you know, teams are going to anticipate and get kind of caught up. Like in this instance, the 5 should be popping to then reverse and set another ball screen. But now they're setting a pin down here for the 1, or a down screen for the 1. That's going to be really tough for defenses to adjust. You know, they get kind of caught up in the actions that you're running continuously. And then when you do throw that wrinkle in, I have to think you get a pretty open shot out of it.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I've gone with it is, you know, start with the predictable action to go with most of your sets, and then on the backside, throw a wrinkle on the other end where they're going to have a tough time on what to do in that situation.
So, Coach, I appreciate the breakdown, the different entry points, the wrinkles that you can run off of it. And as I'm watching this, and I'm like, wow, I love this entry and how it forces the defense to do this and just different aspects. And I had to keep reminding myself, but there's a continuity aspect to this. So even with that different entry point, you know, you're going to run that through some possessions, you know, that continuity. At least when I saw some clips of Gonzaga, 2, 3, 4 times they're running that, you know, side ball screen action, and defenses have to continue to defend it. So wanted to ask you to talk a little bit about the continuity aspect of it and that balance between, you know, still attacking and getting downhill and looking for baskets, and also, you know, running it through and being patient 2, 3, 4 times and finding the best look. You know, I feel like there's always that balance with really any offense, but we're talking continuity now. So just thinking, you know, you want them to be aggressive and get downhill and look to score, but you also know that defense has to continue to switch or hedge, and eventually they're going to make a mistake and someone's going to be wide open and you're going to, you know, make that pass. So how do you balance that out, you know, with your team?
So what we really rep in practice is, because what happens when we play, you know, when we start repping it, we get that first initial ball screen, we hit the guy. As coaches, we really rep, get it to the second and third side as quick as possible. Sometimes we don't even look at the roll man on the first one because it's not there. Coaches are getting really good at defending ball screens, especially on that first initial one, and it's usually never there. I watch NBA in college. I don't see a lot of roll men getting them unless it's a lob pass to a 6'10" guy that can put his elbow through the rim. You know, it's one of those things. We're dealing with high schoolers. So what we try to do is I have a 2 dribble rule. When you come off a screen, you only get 2 dribbles or less. Or we're going to say 2 dribble minimum, meaning you have to take 2 dribbles before you pass it. That way we can read, we can react, but we can't take 3. If we take 3 dribbles, it's way too much. We're slowing the game down. They're able to defend us. Our goal is to get it to the second or third side as fast as possible, because then the defense is now one side of the court, other side of the court. Now they're back to the other side, and now they're in a chasing disadvantage part. Because I like to play fast. You know, I put in the chat before, if you have a fast defense, you have to have a fast offense. If you have a slow defense, you'll have a slow offense. That way it's consistent on both ends, which with the continuity, you can run into that problem of, well, you want to play fast defense. Well, you might run continuity for 15, 20 seconds on one end. But this is kind of our again, what I want to say is our just continuity offense of we have a transition offense, we go dribble drive, and then once the ball sticks, then we get into our continuity things. So that's kind of how my offense system goes with that. So if we get into it, it's either right out of, we just need to get into it or not in transition. That's kind of our thing.
I like to play fast as well, which is on both ends of the floor, which is probably why I like this offense so much. And wanted to ask you, I know you like the 1-4 high, and I can see why, especially from a spacing perspective, the space that opens underneath the basket for some of the options and wrinkles that you incorporate into it. But do you use some of the other setups, alignments, a 5 out, or, maybe it's a 1-4 low, or do you go to some of those other setups, or do you really stick with the 1-4 and rep that and go with that?
So I've looked at the 1-4 low because there's opportunities out of that. You can lift your 4 and 5 to get a better pass. So they're not catching by the 3-point line if you do a post entry. Just haven't repped it with our guys. Like I said, just try to keep it simple with high schoolers with that. I want us to be really good at one thing. One of my coaches, Dave Priam, is our junior JV coach. My mentor, he said, do you want to be good at a lot of things, or do you just want to be great at one thing? And so being great at that 1-4 high look, establishes identity in the program. And then teams are going to have to say, Coach Hurley's been running 1-4 high Gonzaga for the last 8 years. That's what he does, and that's what he's going to do. And, you got to beat it.
And I think a lot can be said. About that. My last few years, we were a dribble drive team, and teams knew we were going to do it. And we certainly had some wrinkles and quick hitters off of it, but, teams had to adjust to it. And, as they adjusted, we had things we could do. And, the same thing with our full court pressure defense. Teams knew we were going to run and jump them, and we were going to get into our pressure. And, it was on them to practice it, and they were spending time in practice preparing for that. And, they knew what we were going to do, but they still had to beat it. And, the way that we knew it, to your point, keep it simple. Your guys know it. They execute it. They know their reads. They believe in it. I think so much can be said about that, especially in today's game. And, my philosophy was always very, very similar to that as well. So, Coach, you gave us a ton of great information, and, the wrinkles, the entry points, the sets, and then the base 1-4 continuity. Feel like there's some coaches out there that are going to see this, they're going to like it, or they're trying to incorporate it with their team, and they're going to have questions. So how can those coaches reach out to you to connect and ask some of those questions?
So yeah, if you have Fast Draw, I can always send my playbook that I have with this. All the things that I used today were on Fast Draw. I can send through there. Send me an email at austin.hurley with an E, not an I, for Austin, at iCloud.com. I can send anything through there. I'm also can do Zoom meetings and things like that on those kind of things. So those are some things. I have it all on Fast Draw. I can send it all these things as a click of a button.
Well, Coach, I really appreciate your time tonight. I know that I learned a little bit about this offense and really the options, and I'm really liking it. And I have to think that, this is something that I might want to incorporate with my team, if I were to be coaching. And I'm sure coaches out there are going to benefit from watching this as well. So I want to thank you for your time. I hope we can do this again down the road. I feel like there's some other topics that we can jump into.
Absolutely. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be here. I love doing it. It was awesome.
Good. I always love talking hoops. So thanks again, Coach.
Thank you.